When do you make your entrance into WWF?
Well, WrestleMania was in March of '87, and I came in April of '87.
And your duties were what?
I came in, Vince says to me, he goes, I don't have a job description, come on in and find your place. Literally, I had no job description. I'd go to TV, and I would, shadow Vince, and he would do the pre-tapes and all these things, and I'd just walk around with him and watch him doing stuff, and I'd go off and produce interviews and different things, but I watched, and I just hung around, and I got to sit in on booking meetings with him and Pat Patterson, and then...
Well, let's talk about some of those booking meetings, though, because back in the day, now this was obviously still at his crib in Greenwich, right?
Yep.
And so to the people who don't know, back in the day, as Bruce is talking, when Vince was laying out the matches for the next foreseeable future, while Vince was laying out the matches for the next few weeks, months, or whatever, they liked to book by Vince's swimming pool at his mansion in Greenwich. Correct, Bruce?
Correct.
So, but this was in a much more simplified time. This is back when they would sit there with pencil and paper and write ideas down and pair guys up or tag teams up and build to a particular date, maybe a pay-per-view, a big event. And so you got to sit in on some of those meetings. How has that changed from the way they book today?
Well, back then it was literally just a few minds. It was a few heads that you took the big story and you figured out where you wanted to go with that big story. You had an ending point. And then you worked backwards.
Right.
Well, what do we need to do to get here? What do we need to do to get to this big explosion blow-off? But it was a much simpler format, and it was, I guess the process was a lot simpler because you were always coming up with things, you were always coming up with ideas to make the big story better.
But you weren't trying to, excuse me for butting in, but it was almost a simplified process also because you weren't trying to fill in so many gaps or blanks because you knew that the guys would be doing a lot of that work, with the big picture, but you could paint in much broader strokes back then.
Without a doubt.
Because it's been so much micromanaged today.
Knew once you got them out in front of people and you got it on TV, you would listen. You listen to the people. You can tell what they're buying and what they're not buying. And then it left room to adjust.
So then when you make these initial, you start going to the booking meetings at the house with Vince and Pat. And obviously we know Vince is a genius. Obviously, for those who don't know who Pat Patterson is, probably one of the greatest finish guys in the history, if not the greatest finish guy in the history of the business. Some might say Eddie Graham. But obviously, Pat also, a badass, professional wrestler, hell of a tag team with Ray Stevens. But, man, see, he's a really, really smart guy, too. So how are you chipping in on these booking sessions between the old man and Pat?
Well, you got two guys that are 20 years my senior.
Right.
So who's closer to the demographic? And I came from a completely different place.
You're closer to the demographic, but how worried are you about stepping on their toes?
In the beginning, very worried.
Right.
But Vince has a way, making people comfortable and allowing you. The thing about it is, if you're honest with Vince, and I found later years especially that the more I disagreed with him, and as long as I had backup and I had a reason why I disagreed, he loved it because he didn't just want to hear, yeah, goddamn Vince, that's great.
Right.
He wanted you to pick it apart.
Right.
And if you could pick it apart and you had good reasons for picking it apart, not just that sucks, but what if we tried this? What if you take that same idea and you tried this? Or how about trying this over here instead? And I learned a very important lesson from Pat Patterson because I did used to say, nah, that just sucks. That's a shits.
Right.
Without offering any suggestion to make it better or why it sucked or why it was a shits. And Pat said, he goes, you can suggest things. He goes, but if you added 2 words to your vocabulary, what if?
Right.
And then you present another side or an option.
Right.
He says, it will come across a lot better. And think about it before you just go, that sucks.
Right.
Because it may suck. It may be the shits and it may suck. But think about why why it sucks and why it's the shits, and come up with a reason and a way to make it better.
Right.
And we battled. Oh, my God, we used to battle. Vince and I would fight. Oh, brutal.
And so then this is 87, 88?
Well, I mean, in those times, Steve, I was like in the early '80s. Mainly, I was doing production and TV production and working on the cable shows, all the international. In '88, I pretty much oversaw the syndicated programming and all the TV at that point. So I would work with Vince and Pat, but more from the TV end.